So we're excited today to have Pastor Brad Kochis with us. He is the Executive Director of Alumni Relations and Advancement at Mount Vernon Nazarene University and the founding pastor at the Refinery Church. But more exciting than that, he also used to be my boss. So Brad's going to talk to us today about how we can lead through the generations and speak a little bit about his work with college students and alumni from different generations. Brad, thanks for being here.
Hey, it's great to be with you, Barb. And just to set the story straight, Barb really was more my boss. She kept me in line, and we got a lot done together for the kingdom. And it was a lot of fun.
It was.
You ought to be able to have fun while you're making a difference. So
Amen.
Good to be with you. And I'm excited about Wonderful Works and what Wonderful Works is offering to the greater church body of Christ to help people find a connection in great ways. So bravo, congratulations, and keep moving forward because this is a really necessary ministry.
Thank you, Brad. So let's talk a little bit about today. In the new normal, we have this kind of hybrid, over-politicized society. And I don't know about you, but I've noticed there seems to be a bigger divide than ever between the generations. I know you work with a lot of people of all generations. Have you noticed this?
Oh yeah, I think, unless you really are off the grid or living under a rock, it's apparent that we have a major divides and maybe even some schisms, like divides that are going to be really hard to heal. What used to be differences of opinion have become battle lines in culture. And so, yeah, we definitely see it. I see it. Every generation has had their struggles with the previous generation before them or the generation after them. But now, given what has happened in the last, 12 months for sure, what was going to be and what promised to be a difficult political cycle paired with a pandemic. And now there's divides about everything. Everything seems to be so tenuous. So yeah, we see it. Definitely not immune to it.
Yeah, I have noticed that a lot. So just to give some context, both Brad and I are part of the best generation, Generation X. So we're kind of right in the middle of the generations. And I know from me, when I have spoken to some of my relatives that are in the older generations, there seems to be a real fear of the future. And when I've spoken to some of the younger generations, there seems to be a real almost judgment of the old wisdom. Do you think we can help close that gap?
Yeah, I think the difficult thing is we no longer have a society that listens to understand. We have a society that simply listens to react, and everybody wants to be heard, and everybody has a story they want to tell, a narrative they want to engage, a dialogue that really they want to be a monologue.
Yeah.
And I think that's everywhere. And the difficulty is until we step back and choose to listen, to truly understand and hear what the other generations are saying, we're not going to bridge the divide. It's only going to get wider, I'm afraid. And, I see it, even things like the vaccine. I don't know where people stand on vaccinations. I don't take the flu shot. But at this point in the pandemic, it's really interesting to me about the divide over a vaccine and how politicized it's become. And I know that there's just enough information to be excited and frightened on both sides of the coin, right? But it seems like if somebody chooses not to get the vaccine, the younger generation is just lobbing so many accusations at them, like they don't care and they don't. But, some of those folks fought in wars to secure freedoms so you could choose whether or not to have vaccines. So, that's where we find ourselves in this really strange. So I think the only hope to bridging the gap of the divide is choosing to find the commonality of what is best and what is good about America, own what we need to own that's different, understand that we're not perfect as a nation. We do have a storied past, as do all nations on earth.
Right.
And be willing to have dialogue intentionally and move forward with unity. That's the only hope.
If another leader's watching this and they find themselves in a conversation with someone who has a very strong opinion that is not helpful for team unity, what are some practical tips you could tell them as a leader on what they should do?
When somebody is passionate and like coming at you as a leader, and they will, when they want to share a concern, sometimes they just come at you, and it may have very little to do with you, and it may have very little to do with what's in your sphere of control, honestly, in the organization. But I used to, unfortunately, I would respond before I would ask a very important question to myself. When I feel the tension rising in the room, I quickly ask myself, what is happening in me?
That's good.
I want to know, what emotions am I feeling based on the way this communication's going before I'm willing to respond. Because if I respond out of my own hurt or my own defensiveness or my own, then really I'm just going to add to the difficulty. I'm not going to be able to help bring continuity and unity from the difficulty. And often I will ask the person, what is it that you hope we can accomplish in our conversation today? If you could select the outcome, can you share with me what you would like that to be? And then we can talk about everything. And that kind of frames a little bit.
Yeah.
So, because a lot of times when people are frustrated, they've not thought through what they hope the outcome would be.
Right.
They're just trying to, they're emotionally vomiting a lot of times, or they're emotionally charged at some level. And so I try to get people to think about, what do we hope can happen out of this?
Are there things as leaders that we unintentionally do that creates a bigger divide between the generations?
Yeah, for sure. I think leadership is stewardship. Andy Stanley said it a long time ago. I believe it. Leadership is stewardship. It's temporary, and we're accountable. I think some of the things we unintentionally do organizationally and even in the culture is we tend to avoid the tension conversations, and then we create echo chambers where we're only talking to people that we know agree with us and affirm what we already think.
Yes.
So I'm in my life, I've tried to become very intentional to be in a lot of different circles. Like I want to be stretched. I want to be challenged in my own thinking. I want to remain open-minded. I want to believe that even what I feel about this, or what I think, or what I've discerned, I may not be right. I could be wrong here.
Right.
Now, there are absolute truths in my life. There are absolute foundational principles that I stand on that I don't compromise, nor do I use them as a billy club to beat other people up. I seek and aspire to be a follower of Christ all the days of my life. So there are foundational truths that I hold deep and dear, but that shouldn't keep me from being able to love others who aren't well. Matter of fact, it should help me do it better. But I have to be open to living and stewarding the tension, to walking into it without arrogance and trying to understand the other side. Our son is, let's see, he's 23. He's an artist. He's man, we are wired so differently. I can't draw a stick figure and have it turn out decent. He has so much creativity, and we think really differently about a lot of things. And I learned I can shout louder and hope he hears me.
Right.
Or I can try to engage where he's at and create an environment where he can trust me to have sincere conversation.
Yeah.
And I praise the Lord. I mean, he called me the other day and we talked for 45 minutes, and it was wonderful. And when your kids are grown and out, you get that sense of, man, they really care. But you'll know when they invite you into your world, because it's a trust thing. And if I just keep driving stakes on the same old mantras of, you got to do this, you should be doing that, your generation this, your generation that, I try not to start any sentence with your, putting it on somebody else, unless I'm about to give them a compliment. A good friend of mine and mentor said this, and it's brilliant, and it's helped me. He said, everybody has a story, but not everybody has a listener.
Right.
And it hit me, it resonated. I want to spend my days being a good listener. I want to be engaged. I want to pay attention. I don't want to be on my device. I don't want to be distracted by what's going on around me. Because what if the person that is really fired up and frustrated and is from a different generation, what if we're the only person in our generation that they're willing to trust and be vulnerable with, or take that chance to test and see if they can be honest and vulnerable?
Yeah.
Then we really have an opportunity to show the kindness and find the unity in who we are meant to be, as individuals, as humans, as people, as part of the same country, as part of the same organization, whatever it is. That gap will only shrink if those of us who are a little further down the road can be our listeners.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. So my next question is, when you're looking at a lot of leadership material that's out there now and trying to grow, I see a lot of articles about bringing the younger generations in, listening to the younger generations and learning from them, which I think is awesome. And I recently just had a meeting that was spearheaded by a 7th grader a few weeks ago, and it was amazing. She taught me so much.
Yeah.
But my question is, when I keep seeing these, I wonder what does that say to the older generations? And are we doing a disservice if we are only putting our focus on one generation? How do we change that model so that we're all getting the best from each person right where they are?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, when I was pastoring the church, one of the things I said to the board with regularity is every organization will grow old if it is, prosperous. It'll grow old by length of time that it's been in existence. But we must never allow the organization or the church to grow old in its thinking in ways that are not essential. So, meaning, how do we invite and include the younger generation while giving them the opportunity not only to have influence, but to be influenced by the older generation? And I think intergenerational intentionality has to be at the heart of what we're trying to do.
Yes.
So we have a college student who sits on the board, and I think they should always have a college student who sits on the board, who can wrestle in prayer, be in the meetings where direction is really discussed and vision is not only articulated but wrestled with, where the adoption of processes come together. That's one way that we can value the wisdom of the generations before them while giving them a voice to have influence and create organizational dialogue at a deeper level. But I think it's, there's so much knowledge. Knowledge is so easy to get. Knowledge, you can get knowledge in a minute. As a matter of fact, textbooks that are printed now are almost out of date by the time the ink dries, before they get to shipping. And you can do a search, and there's 4 or 5 search engines working at the same time to give you results instantaneously. Knowledge is what the younger generation has taken for granted. I used to have to go to encyclopedias. People don't even know what those are, right? Now, so they're pole vaulting things, but I'll tell you what the younger generation desperately craves, and even if they don't know they crave it yet, they crave wisdom that is acquired. Wisdom is acquired over time. You can't just teach wisdom. You can't, right? You can't make somebody hungry for wisdom. They have to be exposed to things that give them opportunities to gain wisdom. And so I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I think so often the younger generation looks at us that are older, especially the baby boomers. That's where the huge divide is right now, is between millennials and baby boomers, right? By population growth, they're super similar. The
Right.
millennials are now the largest generation in American history, etching out the baby boomers maybe by 2 to 3 million. That's all interesting, but their ideologies on a lot of things could not be further apart.
Right.
And so the younger generation looks at the baby boomers as not being knowledgeable, and
Right.
the older generation looks at the millennials as not being wise.
Right.
That to me is where our generation can be the bridgers in that gap, to say there's so much wisdom here, and there's so much knowledge here.
Yeah.
How do we marry those two? And
Well,
that convergence could be exponential.
Well, that I think is the key to the whole thing. And one of the reasons we're having this dialogue today is because I realized recently, reaching out to my team at church, our special needs ministry team, that when I asked a question, the different generations answered it in completely different ways. I was saying, how can we reach out to families that are outside the church in this new hybrid society we have? And I was thinking online, and some of the older generations came back with all these wonderful ways to do it in person, in ways I never thought of. And it struck me, we're missing it. We need to be really, like you said, listening more, asking questions, and thinking about what can we learn, and then how can we celebrate what we hear so that other people of other generations can respect that. Because I think we can get the best out of both if we do it right.
I agree. And I think, I think that's the stewardship of leadership. Wise leaders, great leaders, they realize it's not about getting everybody to buy into my idea.
Right.
It's about finding and empowering others to bring the best ideas. So find the best and celebrate, right? Celebrate those great ideas from the older generation on how your ministry can function, and celebrate the virtual, or how to marry those two together, that these things really come together, and there's a convergence that can be exponential.
You had mentioned before the different generations feel connected in different ways. Can you expand on that, please?
Yeah. So in my current work with alumni and even fundraising different things, how you reach out, how you communicate generationally really is different, and it has to be. For people over 50, picking up the phone and making a phone call, that really matters. For people in the millennial age, texting is by far their preferred. They want to talk with their thumbs, not with their voice.
How does trust impact connection?
Trust is huge, right? Trust takes time, and trust takes truth, but trust also takes humility. If I can't be humble, then most people are going to struggle to truly trust me at their core. And humility is one of the things that I think most generations lack, because we all think that we had it hardest and we were the best. That's every generation. Our music was the best, whatever.
Our music was the best.
Yeah, of course. I understand. I know your genre. But there's that. So how do we create connection? Is we have to go to the gap between connection with humility over time. Humility, here's the thing. In most relationships, if we want them to be healthy, trust is given. It's a given. Mistrust is earned. But once they mistrust you, now the gap grows, right? Trust once lost is so hard to gain. Part of what we have as a difficulty in our current culture is trust wasn't automatically given on really divisive issues. None of us trusted that the generation, either direction, really understood the issue. So take super controversial topic, but let's take statues that have been being removed, right? So on one end of the spectrum, that's our history. That's this, that, and there's truth in that. That statement has truth. On the other end of the spectrum, that is punitive, and that is embodying something that should never have been allowed. And there's truth. How do we get to the middle? If on this side I can believe that the feelings and the emotions and the facts have some merit, then maybe the gap can shrink. And on this side, if they can believe that the feelings and the facts do have some merit, maybe we can find middle ground, true, genuine compromise. That's a byproduct of trust. Mm-hmm. Because when I don't trust, it's got to be my way. But when I truly trust and go to that gap with humility and over time with truth, and being willing to believe that there's truth on the other side, we can create that trust. Mm-hmm. But it's difficult.
Is there anything else that you think would be really helpful for leaders who are trying to unite their teams intergenerationally?
Yeah. So if you're a leader and you don't know what to do, mm-hmm. and you feel stuck, and you feel, like you're in the middle and you don't know which way to turn, I started asking myself this question in parenting. Mm-hmm. I would ask myself this question to remove me from the situation and try to give me a fresh perspective. So when it comes to generational things, because that was a generational issue for me, and I would ask myself this: what would a great dad do in this situation? Or when it came to our marriage and there would be tension or disagreement, a lot of times about parenting, I would ask myself, what would a great husband do in this situation? And when I would remove myself, I could see and I could think more clearly, and it allowed me to mute my emotions and put on my leadership hat in those situations. And so when I was pastoring, and Barb, you know this, I would ask, and I would say to the staff, when they would come to me with an issue, I'd say, if you were a consultant giving yourself advice, what would you think a great consultant would tell you? One of the things I love about a consultant, they come in, they look at what they see, they ask some questions, and then they shoot you straight. A lot of times we don't like what consultants tell us.
Right.
Because down deep, we know they're probably right. Mm-hmm. And what they have to share often is painful. Mm-hmm. So that's it. Step away and give yourself advice. And then always do what is in the best interest of the mission and vision of the organization, mm-hmm. over what's comfortable and easy to arrive at. So one of the things I'm asking myself these days, when I come up to something that is tenuous for me, interpersonally in my life, am I asking for comfort, or am I looking for a true solution? Because those two things are really different. Leadership, it is no small thing, but I believe it echoes. Mm-hmm. It echoes beyond our lifetime. So I want to do it well.
Leadership does go beyond ourselves and beyond our own organizations. And with that in mind, I just like to say thank you to you for all of those years that you poured into me and the rest of our staff with your wisdom and your hard questions. It changed my life, and Wonderful Works would not be here without that mentorship. So I want to say thank you for that. And I want to encourage anyone watching this to remember that you are influencing more people than you even know. And your influence carries past today. So be intentional, be a lifelong learner, and really be a listener and an inviter and an includer. So.
Right. Well, it was fun to grow together, Barb, for all those years. And I'm grateful that our friendship extends past our time of being on the same staff. And I want to live my life all the days of my life. I want to live with this mantra, and I'm going to claim it as true. The best is yet to come.
Yeah.
And that keeps me moving forward. Thanks so much. And I hope that in the future we can stay connected. I I love Wonderful Works, and I believe great days for a lot of churches reaching a bunch of people that otherwise would go unreached for the kingdom and unloved by the church are going to be helped through this ministry. So thanks, Barb. God bless you.
Thanks, Brad.